And you're on.
What's up, Tucson, Arizona? This is the Call Me Crazy Show, episode 249. 249. And before I forget, just recently, as of last month, it was our 13-year anniversary of the Call Me Crazy Show. And once again, it wouldn't have been made possible except by people like you, the viewers, and public access, of course. But anyways, I'm so glad to be here. I know I say that every time, but I really am. Anyway, first thing first, it's now it's ending the first week of April, and it's currently ending right now. And anyway, it's the biggest news I could think of right now that it's been on everybody's mind lately is I'm having a brain fart. Oh, what the nuclear accident in Japan that happened in the first 2 weeks of March. It's now been 3 weeks since that earthquake and tsunami had happened in Japan. And the point I wanted to make is that there were 4 nuclear reactors, and what happened is the earthquake damaged the nuclear reactor and started leaking radiation. But the point I wanted to make, like I said earlier, is like, I know Japanese people are smart. I'm not saying I do not respect them. Japan, the country, I'm saying. But I guess I'm pretty sure we do too. We have nuclear reactors that they have, that we have built on earthquake fault lines. I think there's several nuclear reactors between Los Angeles and San Francisco that on a fault line, like the same thing that the one in Japan, Fukushima, I believe is the name of the reactor. But anyway, it's a major disaster. All kinds of people were hurt. Last I read, it was 25,000 people are reported dead and missing. The pictures are horrific. It's a catastrophic event. But anyways, it just breaks my heart to see that if bad enough Japan has gone through the same horrors that Germany and Italy and the U.S. and Russia and countless other countries during World War II, that not only did they had to deal with the casualties from World War II, but we also remember back in 1945, in August, that's when we had dropped 2 atomic bombs on Japan. And their names were Hiroshima and Nagasaki. But anyways, when those 2 nuclear bombs went off, Japan has surrendered, and back then that was just unheard of. It ushered in the atomic age, and that's a lot of heartbreak and mourning and loss there. And then Japan gets to have this going on, and now I read too that some of that radiation that leaked, it's possible that it might be some of our milk supply here in the U.S. But I read also it could be, it's such a minute amount, it doesn't make any difference. They say if we were to drink it, I guess within several days it dissipates from our body. I don't know how that works. I'm not a scientist or a doctor, but even though I might play one on TV. But so it gets, it's a sad event that happened to Japan. And also too, now that happened, a lot of the electronic stuff that we import from Japan is gotten a little higher. They cost more now to make, so that's why the prices are going up higher. But anyway, hopefully they'll be able to get things in gear, which I know is not realistic, because also last I read there's 1 million people who don't have homes, and that's just a sad thing. So our hearts go out to them. Okay, the second thing I want to talk about is Gaddafi. We all know Egypt and what's the other country? Egypt had a revolution and overthrew the president, and then Tunisia, I think. I'm not sure. but anyways, Libya, Gaddafi's been the dictator. He's been a dictator there since, I believe, since the late 60s. But anyways, Gaddafi is a name. It's a name that was huge back in the 80s. Back in 1986, when Ronald Reagan was president, I remember it very fondly. Well, not fondly, I remember it very well. Ronald Reagan had or approved or okayed air raids up on Gaddafi's palace in Tripoli back in '86. I believe it was in April of '86, I believe. But anyways, it would get a couple days. I believe it was not even a 2-day campaign. They just went in there and did some jet strikes and whatnot. And back then, we didn't know it then, but he was the mastermind, or not the mastermind, but Gaddafi was one of the biggest fund power brokers, if you will, in the terrorist games back in the 80s. And you also know that Libyan government and Gaddafi were responsible for the 1988 Lockerbie accident. Or I should say not accident, the Lockerbie terrorist bombing that blew up Pan Am 103. That Pan Am is the name of an airline from the 80s that was huge in the 80s. If I'm correct, right wording? Pan Am? Yeah, Pan Am was a huge airline. But Pan Am 103 was a plane that was flying over Lockerbie, Scotland back in '88, I believe in December. Don't quote me on that, but I think it was December '88. But anyways, Gaddafi had funded this terrorist group, and this terrorist group had planted a bomb on this plane, and on this plane there was like 249 people, and what happened, it had blew up, and it happened to blow up over the city of Lockerbie, and Lockerbie, I think, is a town of 600,000 or 700,000 people. But anyways, it blew up in midair. I think at 20,000 feet, and then when it had crashed into the city, the impact was so great that I believe there was like 90 tons of fuel. I think 50 to 90 tons of fuel were on that plane when it hit the ground. And what it did, it ended up wiping out several neighborhoods at once. It basically burned to death a lot of people in their homes when they were asleep, not knowing that, well, I guess what people were saying then, that they heard the biggest rumble that you ever heard. And then it hit the ground, and there's eyewitness accounts that said maybe 3-4 miles away from the explosion, they said it was a mini mushroom cloud, they said. But anyways, and Gaddafi was responsible for that, even though he didn't have his hands on there. Literally, his hands were stained with the blood because he helped fund it. And then he had made sure that those people had received protection after that happened. So that had to happen in '88, and the point is I'm trying to make is that in '86, too bad that airstrike that Ronald Reagan had did with the Air Force and the Army didn't take him out then. And now here we are at 2011. We're dealing with this bullshit now. And now it's very tricky, because now we have Barack Obama who's the president. Okay, and so what happened 2 weeks ago, these rebels are trying to overthrow Gaddafi. So what the U.S. did, they led a campaign, and we sent some jet strikes over, and we shelled some of the shore, and we did some bombing raids in Tripoli, and now the U.S. had handed power over to the UN. Now it's up to the people and the army of the United Nations to keep up with the strikes, keep up with the shelling of Gaddafi, and help these rebels overthrow Gaddafi, because Gaddafi the dictator. But what a lot of people don't realize is it turns out that not all the rebels, but some of the rebels have ties to Al Qaeda and to other terrorist groups. That's what the tricky part. Because 2 weeks ago we were helping these guy out, these rebels overthrow Gaddafi, when in reality that we might actually be helping these would-be terrorists, I guess. See, I'm not a foreign policy maker. I'm not saying I would like to be one. But when do we know when to stop? And because even though we had handed power over to the UN, they're the ones keeping up. The rebels are saying it's not the same. The U.S. power is more efficient. But it's already bad enough we're in Iraq and Afghanistan. We don't need a third continuous conflict in the Middle East. Because it's bad enough out here at home with certain things. So that's another huge mess. And hopefully one day, somewhere down the road, Gaddafi will suffer the same fate as that of, you guessed it, our generation, Adolf Hitler. It was Saddam Hussein. And remember, he got caught in the fucking foxhole eventually. So hopefully in the end, maybe next year or this year, further down the road in an episode Call Me Crazy, I'll be saying they had caught Gaddafi and he has been executed. So it's great to see that people of Egypt and other countries and in the Middle East, they want to have free elections and they want a democracy, which is great. But the idea of us giving money and resources to the certain people in the rebel groups who have ties to Al Qaeda, it gets the fucking. That's what you call clusterfuck. Because there's a no-win situation there. Because what the end result is that we don't want to see countless Libyan civilians be massacred and slaughtered by their own president, dictator, dumbass Gaddafi. So we'll do more updates on the Gaddafi thing in Libya. It's hard to believe. Then the late 80s, Libya gets died out, and then a couple of years ago, Libya admitted that they helped out with the Lockerbie attack, and then they gave like a $2 billion compensation to the family, I believe, or $3 billion. The Libyan government gave $3 billion to all the survivors of the accident, the attack, and then the U.S. and other allies lifted the U.S. sanctions, and Gaddafi denounced terrorism, when in fact he only had denounced terrorism just to be able to import and export again. Because for a while there, almost 20 years, the sanctions were held in place. There was no fly zones in Libya. It gets a mess. And now to think, almost 15 years later, 20 years later, he's back in the news again, and he doesn't give a fucking flying fuck. You know, he's ready to fight to the death, he said, and he won't show no mercy. So God help those people in Libya. Okay, and then on the subject of all that, war and terror and evil, the other day I had read, and I've known about this for quite a while. It's like there are some people out there who actually believe that the Holocaust never happened. You know, and everybody's entitled to their own views, opinions that will make this country fucking great. But it gets for me, when the facts are there, is when you have 24 million pairs of shoes and there's nobody wearing them and they're all in one place. You know, where does those people go? You know, they didn't go and disappear into thin air. You know, and then there's the crematoriums that at all these concentration camps and in Germany and Poland. You know, I think there were 12 major ones, you know, Auschwitz and all that. And, you know, they're still there, and people still refuse to believe that happened. And now that 2011, that generation is now slowly with every passing year slowly dying out, like the words of Tom Brokaw, The Greatest Generation. But the fact that the Holocaust did happen, uh, open your mind and see the pictures, the footage, and don't be such an ignorant fuck. I love Mel Gibson. Mel Gibson had made some great movies like Passion of the Christ and what's the other one that he made, Braveheart, and I liked Mad Max, Road Warrior. But I guess his dad's a preacher or reverend, someone in the clergy. But anyways, he says that the Holocaust didn't happen, and I read that, and he's so convinced it's all a scam, and it's like, are you so ignorant that you refuse to believe all these facts? And like I said, if you have 26 million pairs of shoes, mountains of them that fills up acres and acres, and there ain't nobody wearing them. Nobody wearing them. Where did they go? So that'll be another topic. World War II was a all-encompassing spectacle of good versus evil. It's a big story. I would like to talk about it one day with you guys, because it seems like I said earlier, with every passing year, there's less and less people who know about the importance of World War II. I'm not saying the Korean War or the Civil War or the Revolutionary War or the Spanish-American War or the American-French War or the Gulf War I, the Gulf War II, Desert Storm. I'm not saying they're all better than anything. War is war. War is hell. But I'm just saying World War II and World War I. World War II is what made the U.S. possible. World War II what made the U.S. a superpower. Because prior to World War II, the U.S. was barely scraping by, barely struggling. We was during the Great Depression and all that. And it gets interesting to share, I think. So it'll be in the next episode. We'll talk about that. Okay, and then also, it was 17 years ago today that Kurt Cobain blew his face away. That's the new Beatles song called Kurt Cobain. It was 20 years ago today. 17 years ago today, he blew his face away today. But anyway, he died 17 years ago, and I remember the day exactly, because what happened that fateful day back in April of '94. I was working the night shift at a building in downtown Tucson, and I was living with my mom and dad at the time, and my father had called my work. I used to work on the fourth floor of the federal building, or not a federal building, a court building in downtown, and I had received a phone call, and they passed it through to my boss, and my boss had went up to the fourth floor and said, "Hey, do you have a phone call?" So I remember going down, riding the elevator, and I had my Walkman. I was rocking a Walkman cassette player. Remember, folks, this is '94. There was no iPod, no Nano, no iPad, no BlackBerry, no iPhone, none of that. No iTunes, no, none of that. I was rocking the cassette player with the cheap ass headphone, and my cassette player is the one that you could clip on a belt, and it was so ghetto, it didn't even have a cover. I would place the cassette in there, and it would just be the cassette. There would be no cover. But anyways, I was listening to a mixtape that You Know Who and the television had made me back then. And it was the best of all the live stuff Marty had accumulated on Nirvana for 91, 92, 93. And prior to 94, all the bootlegs And Marty had quite a bit that Marty will wait months and weeks for it to come in the mail. And once they come in the mail, Marty will make me a copy on these old school Memorex tapes. And they were like 90 minutes on each side, and Marty would make me the awesome mixtape of live Nirvana that the whole world was not listening to, only the elite few. And Marty had started receiving these Nirvana bootlegs as early as '92, and so he had made me a mixtape. So I'm rocking out with the Nirvana songs, and I took the elevator down to the first floor, and then I go into the maintenance office, and I go in there, and the phone call is there for me. So I pick up the phone, and it's my dad, my father, and he's like, I hope, I just wanted to let you know, right away, he didn't even say, how are you doing? He's like, I just wanted to let you know they found a body at Kurt Cobain's house in Seattle. And I'm like, whose body? I said, not in a million years thinking it's his. It was like his body. And at first, when my dad had told me that over the phone, I was like, I refused to believe it. I was like, that's fucking bullshit. I'm just listening to him right now. I said, I didn't tell him that. I didn't tell him that. I think the tape is going out. If it is, okay. The red light is on. My bad. I'm tripping out. But anyways, my father has said it's his body. So I was like, no, that's ridiculous, because I'm just hearing his voice in the band Nirvana right now on the cassette player. And he's like, no, he has shot himself. And I'm like, so then it slowly dawned on me that it's like the dumbass fucking really did it. I was like, oh. I was speechless and stunned, and I was like, oh, what a dumbass. And so the Leo, he was the foreman, the boss. He's like, is everything okay? And I was like, yeah. I wasn't gonna tell him like, oh, Kurt Cobain gets died. He didn't have no clue Kurt Cobain or Nirvana was. And so I remember going back into the elevator, walking back to the elevator, and I pressed the number 4 button, which meant going to the 4th floor. So I'm going up there, and I'm listening to some song I can't remember, definitely a Nirvana song. And I was so angry, pissed off, and I like I said, I had that Walkman on my belt. I fucking took it off, and I fucking slammed it down in the floor on the elevator, and I broke the cassette, and I broke the Walkman, and then I remember I felt like such an idiot, cause like then the door opened, and I'm on the 4th floor, and I'm like picking up the piece, and I was like, oh, I'm such an idiot. It's like, now I don't have no Nirvana music to listen to, and now I have no Walkman to use, and then it's like, I don't want to listen to Nirvana music ever again. And it took me almost like 2 years before I could finally listen to it again. In 96, 97, by then I was like, alright, I can listen to it again. But for 94, 95, and 96, I didn't listen to it. So it was 17 years ago today that happened. And it was and this is pre-internet, so it was huge. So it wasn't instantaneous like publications the next day were were right away. I mean, this news was huge. I mean, every magazine for a week or 2 weeks afterward his death, it was just every picture was like a picture of Kurt Cobain. And then they would show fucked up pictures, the one where he's like most fucked up or serious. Like People Magazine and Us Magazine, Rolling Stone and Time Magazine, and there was so many, I hate to say it, but hoopla, you know, and that was that. And the last thing I wanted to talk about, the Academy Awards is over. Natalie Portman won Best Actress for Black Swan, which I haven't seen yet. I heard it's very good. But Christian Bale, aka Batman, he won Best Actor for a movie called The Fighter, which is produced by Mark Wahlberg, starring Mark Wahlberg. But anyways, if you haven't seen The Fighter, please check it out. If you need some redemption, if you need some if you need some focus in your life, check out The Fighter, because Christian Bale does a phenomenal job of playing a real life, true life character. Uh, he named Dickie, who was a crack addict, but also a boxing trainer. But a great movie, and Best Picture went to The King's Speech. I'll check it out. I had that problem myself also. And the last thing I can want to say is, I can't wait for the movie The Avengers. Okay, I'm out of here. It's been great talking to you guys. Before I leave, I just want to say, hopefully all the viewers out there who have enjoyed Call Me Crazy over the years have enjoyed the wisdom, words of wisdom I give to you guys. But if you are having moments of crisis, do not despair. There's always the next day. The trick is to stay alive to the next day. I'm out of here, folks. Thanks a lot. This has been episode 249. That's it. I'm out of here. Thank you very much. What's up, Tucson, Arizona? This is the Call Me Crazy Show, episode 249. Before I begin, I want to say thank you to TCCC and Pandul's Children's Productions for making this show possible. Anyways, last week I had talked about a couple of things concerning World War II, and I thought this would be an interesting tidbit for me to talk about. A couple days ago, I saw a documentary called 24 Hours After Hiroshima. It was a documentary put out by National Geographic. They do the magazines on wildlife and culture from around the world, from different countries. But anyway, they did this documentary called 24 Hours After Hiroshima, or how other people call it Hiroshima. I call it Hiroshima. I don't know if I'm saying it right, but that's how I've been saying all my life, but other people call it Hiroshima. But anyway, at the end of World War II, or prior to the end of World War II, before people knew it, back in August 6th, 1945, crew members on an airplane called the Enola Gay had an atomic bomb on there. First one known to man, and it was called Little Boy. But anyway, what the documentary was about, it was not about the U.S. perspective. It was from the Japanese survivor perspective. And so basically, it was a mixture of different stories from different people from all different walks of life on that fateful day back in August 6, 1945 in Hiroshima. But anyway, there was this one story about this little boy back in 1945 that day. He was a mile away from ground zero, and what ground zero means is where the point of impact happened. And in reality, the bomb never hit the ground. The bomb blew up almost 2,000 feet above the ground for full impact. But I'll talk about that later. But anyways, this little boy was playing hide and seek with a fellow classmate. He was 6 years old at the time. But anyways, he had went to the window to cover his eyes to play hide and seek, and his classmate had went to go hide, and it was 8:15 in the morning, 8:15 a.m. And he said that he put his hand in front of his eyes on the glass, because like I said, he was playing hide and seek, and at that same exact moment, the little boy atomic bomb detonated 1,900 feet above the ground, like I said, for full impact. And the little boy, remember, he's an old man now, but that little boy said there was the uh, brightest, whitest flash of light he had ever seen, and never had ever seen before, will never have. And that little boy was seeing, that little Japanese boy was seeing, he was seeing, uh, um, he was seeing the light from the detonation from the atomic bomb, and it has a specific name. I can't remember what it's called. But the point I wanted to make is that when he said that he was had his hands on the window, and when the bright flash had happened from the atomic bomb and it had detonated, he said that he had his eyes open because he was trying to find out what that white light was. And what had happened, he said the light was so bright from detonation that when he was looking through his fingers, he saw the bones highlighted through his hands. You know, that's for the radiation, nuclear fallout, all the different aspects of what happened with a nuclear detonation. And the little boy said he had looked and he could see his bone through his flesh from the bright light. And of course, we all know what happened the next second. He suffered very severe burns. Over 40,000 people were killed instantly in that city. 10 seconds later, 60% of that city was flattened. But I just thought that little story about the little Japanese boy seeing his bones through his hand, I just found it alarming, shocking, disturbing, and I just found it awful that to think that to this day that little boy is now a very old man, and to this day he still suffers from radiation poison that he had suffered from all those burns. But so what had happened after that, the mushroom cloud went up 10 miles up in the air, and the crewmen up in the Enola Gay, that's the name of the plane that had dropped the atomic warhead, they had saw they saw countless and countless and countless of fires in Hiroshima after the mushroom cloud, and then what they had noticed, and this is all concerning physics. In the city of Hiroshima, there was 3,000 to 9,000, even more. People don't know the real number, but there were thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands different points of fire, buildings and shacks and churches and town halls and hospitals, and all these buildings on fire everywhere. Because you got to remember, the nuclear detonation, the main weapon, the main harm that's going to come is the fire. And so there was all these fires going on after the detonation. So you got to what happened with all these fires. Some people, there's been some estimate that there were 30,000 different separate fires in the minutes after the detonation. And then what happened, if you light up maybe 80 candles, 80 tea candles, and tea candles are the small candles that you can buy for $1, 6-pack or 12-pack, I'm not sure, and they're tea light. And if you put 20 together and light every single candle, what happens, there's science comes into play, and there's air being sucked out, and air being sucked out over the candles, and after a while, I'm not sure how it works, but eventually all the little flames are going to connect, and once they connect, they form bigger, they burn brighter, they cause more heat, And then after a while, I have seen this, if you put them together, after a while the fire starts doing a twirl, and it almost looks like a twister tornado, and instead of wind and rain, you're seeing the flames go. And so that's basically what happened a couple of hours after the bomb blew up in Hiroshima. Uh, all the fires converged, and there was a very mean, very, very huge firestorm that engulfed everybody, burned everybody alive. And then also too, the people who weren't killed instantly, they suffer very mean burns. And I had to talk about that because it all started with just this little boy who said he could see the bones through his hand. And then I thought, man, that's like a Terminator 2 kind of thing. Remember Sarah Connor holding it against the fence at the playground, and Judgment Day comes and everybody gets obliterated. And on the subject of the obliteration from nuclear catastrophe like that, do you all remember back in the day, I think it was early 80s, I'm not sure what year, but there was this movie on ABC that was so huge back then. This was pre-internet, pre-BlackBerry, pre-iPad age, and this movie was called The Day After. And The Day After was a movie about basically Russia sending some nuclear missiles over to the U.S. and some detonate. And in the day after, hence the title is what happened the day after. And for a while there was a lot of movies about the communists, what the Cold War is about. Anyway, if the communist people are going to send some nuclear warheads over, but now it's not so much the communists or the Russians that we're worried about, or India or Pakistan or North Korea or Iraq that we're worried about weapons of mass destruction from those people. Is what we're more worried about is from terrorists. Because all it would take is a group of 12 to 20 people to, like they do in the movie, go in the black market and find someone who could buy this and that and get some uranium and make a dirty bomb and whatnot. And that's the biggest threat. And back during the Cold War, the biggest threat was communism taking over, and if we wouldn't bow down to communism, then it will come down to World War III. And I'm not saying World War III is never going to happen, never say never, but if I can recall correctly, I remember back also in the early 80s, I think it was NBC, and it has a lady from that program called That's Incredible. Kathy Crosby? I'm not sure. But anyway, there was a movie on NBC back in the early 80s called World War III, and I thought it was just pretty scary at the time, because at the time I was 28 years old. Back in the early 80s, I was 28. And as a kid, I always thought nuclear proliferation was a very real thing. You know, this is 2011. It's now been 10 years since 9/11. You know, I was certain that something bad was going to happen afterwards, but it's been 10 years, so knock on wood. So thank you, U.S. government, for protecting us. Okay, and then the second thing I wanted to talk about, Tuesday night of this week, a couple nights ago, a man and a woman were arguing up in the city of Newark, I guess New Jersey, New York area. But they were arguing, and it was a domestic dispute, and then the woman ended up taking her 4 kids with her into the family van after the family argument and ended up taking off. And then a couple hours later, come to find out, that woman who took her 4 kids went to the lake and intentionally drove her car into the lake and ended up drowning her 3 kids, the youngest being 11 and the oldest being 4, and ended up killing the 3 kids, also a middle child, and the mom ended up killing herself also. But here's the most remarkable thing I thought, was the 10-year-old, the 4th child, managed to roll down the window and swim to shore, and was able to get help for himself. But by then they said the family van was 80 feet from the shore, or they said it was 75 feet away from the shore, under 10 feet of water, so there was no chance of rescuing them. But anyway, I have been. I'm not saying. I'm not saying I'm perfect, but I have seen people, and I have been in situations, seen relationships where 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 things get pretty heated, and I had never hit anybody, but there's been people from all walks of life, from all over the world. You know, they're getting heated arguments where the police is required, and unfortunately, the police were not able to get there in time prior to her taking the van to the water. Apparently, during the dispute, 911 was called, but I don't know what happened. But they were too late, and by then the mom had already taken the kids into the van. So, but what I'm saying is, if you're in a heated argument, I know you feel angry or whatnot, but you do not have to take the kids with you. That's a very mean-spirited thing to do. That mom who killed her kid, a mother who killed her, a parent who kills their own kid is not a human, and it's just too bad that had to happen. I feel sorry for the father because he has to live with the fact that after the argument, the mom snapped. I guess from stress from being a mom. I guess I don't know. I don't know how that works. It's sad. You know, she had to kill herself. I'm not condoning it, but she did not have to murder her own kids. So that story. And then the third thing I want to talk about. For a couple of weeks now, I've been hearing and reading a lot about all these remains are being found along a stretch of road up in New York State. And come to find out now, there's a total of now 9 different sets of remains. And now New York City is saying there's a serial killer on the loose in New York. Then come to find out, later on that day, later on that day, I also read in Los Angeles there's a serial killer on the loose, and it's suddenly, man, it suddenly dawned on me that the 2 biggest cities in the U.S., one on the west coast by the Pacific Ocean, then one on the east coast by the Atlantic Ocean, I figured that there will be a serial killer in each because CSI is in New York and then CSI is in Los Angeles now. So it makes sense that they would have a serial killer. And even though it's 2011, you would think that shit would not be around. That shit's been around since Jack the Ripper, and prior to that, there's no documentation of any of that. But there's 2 serial killers at large, at work here in the U.S. that we know as a fact. But to tell y'all how many all in all, I have no clue, because I am not the behavioral unit at Quantico up in Virginia, and I'm talking out of my ass. But anyway, another thing I wanted to talk about is I cannot remember. I had a notebook with all my research I did all week, and I did not bring it with me because I'm a fucking idiot moron. No, I'm just kidding. Okay, let me see what else can I remember. For the life of me, I cannot remember what I've written. Okay, I guess that's it, folks. Episode 250 will be up next week, or 2 weeks. I can't remember what I wrote down, guys. I'm having a brain fart. Okay, well, I hope you enjoyed the show. I'm out of here. Like I said, I have shit to do. Alright, later, guys. The Call Me Crazy Show. The Call